How many of you remember the original Star Trek episodes? Oh, there's not too many of us left here. That's the series with Captain Kirk and Spock, and Dr. McCoy. There was one episode where they were answering a distress call, and they go to this planet and they discover that it's a parallel universe to Earth. And when they arrived at the planet, they discovered that it was basically what we would call the Roman Empire. And when they got there, they were accosted by some of the locals, so to speak, and they asked them, "Are you followers of the sun?" Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, thought they were saying, children of the sun, S-U-N, as in the big golden thing outside. And all through the episode, it kept coming back, are you followers of the sun? They had to fight the gladiatorial games and all that. And to make the story short, they got out alive. And when they got back to the ship, they were commenting on, even though it was an advanced culture, most people who worshiped the sun were violent people. And Spock and McCoy and Kirk couldn't understand why the followers of the sun, as opposed to the Roman soldiers on that planet, were very peaceful. And Uhuru, at the communications, he said, I was monitoring all their communications. You have it wrong. They weren't following the sun that is up in the sky. They were following the Son of God. Gene Roddenberry, when he made that show, had the insight to suggest that God is everywhere and not just here on earth. God is not just a development of history, but something greater. Our modern society, though, tells us that belief in Jesus or belief in Yahweh or belief in Krishna or whatever the other religions around the world are only figments of our imagination. They developed over time from superstitions. If you watched the History Channel this week, that notion was unconsciously taught. Who was the face of Jesus, the one show had? Was it real or is it fantasy? Was the Exodus real? Was it fantasy? Was Moses real or was he fantasy? There is no historical proof. Society today, for the most part, has to have scientific proof. But you and I are here not because of scientific proof, but because of faith. We celebrate this holiest of holy days. We gather not just to remember Jesus who rose from the dead as an historical fact. We come to remember who Jesus is at this very moment. We do not worship somebody who died. We worship somebody who is alive. And even though we may not know the extent of how Jesus rose from the dead, we still believe. How many of us are like St. John from the Gospel? How many of us at first don't want to believe in the resurrection, or we superficially believe because that's what our parents taught us? That's what we learned in school or CCD. How many of us, though, have witnessed the resurrection at one time or another in our lives? When we just know that God has worked a miracle for us, whether it's big, whether it's very tiny, we are reminded that there is a God. Society may claim that Christ is dead, that there is no more morality, there is no more ethics, there is no more love of humanity in the world. I would like to show those people, I would like to show those people what happened down in Haiti, people rushing in to help. I would show them people helping in need. There is Christ risen from the tomb. There is Christ in action among us. Christ is not dead. He is alive. If not, we would not be here. We may not understand everything. But if there was not a God over 2,000 years, we would have fallen away. And we would be purely and truly secular. But because we are here, that is one small proof, but it is a proof that God is alive. God is alive in our hearts. Rejoice and be glad then. Yes, there may be tribulations. There may be wars. The History Channel, instead of focusing on the resurrection of Christ, they were focusing on the Antichrist. They were focusing on the devil. In a negative way, that proves that there is a God. If they can just point out the devil, there is an underlying belief that Christ is there, that God is there, that goodness is there. Rejoice and be glad in it. God gives us himself every day. We gather this day to remember the Son of God, who gave us the Son above, who gave us life outside, who gives us life in the family. That is who we are. You've heard the term, we are a resurrection people. We truly are a resurrection people. We are ones that hope for life. We are ones that hope for salvation. We are ones that believe that God is real. We are the ones that believe that life does not end here on earth. It doesn't matter what you see on TV. It doesn't matter what people tell you outside of this building. Christ is alive. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Christ is alive.